All right, I am here with my client, Angela. Angela, I'm so happy to see you. Angela's going to share some of her story with us today. Angela, thank you for being here with me.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm happy you're here. So, do you mind just starting off by telling us a little bit about you, a quick little intro?
Sure. My name is Angela Tarter. I live in Euless, Texas, which is part of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I'm 51 years old, and I am a site development project manager for the telecommunication industry.
Yes, thank you for that intro. So, Angela, you and I have been working together for what, like almost a year and a half now, yeah?
Yep.
Okay. And you came to me anxious to heal your relationship with food.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little about that? Like, what was your history with dieting like? What brought you to me? Just go for it.
My history with dieting, well, like most people in this situation, we've tried them all. All of those diets are the same. They're trying to remove something. They're trying to remove calories. They're trying to remove fat. They're trying to remove sugar. And most of all, trying to remove all your calories. um, it just, nothing worked. And it got to the point where I felt like it was me. I was doing something wrong. There was, something deep inside me that was not making this work to be able to make my body the best it could be. So
Yeah.
that's what, go ahead.
When you say nothing worked, you mean like you weren't able to keep the weight off that you wanted to keep off, or what do you mean by that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would, lose 20 pounds and then I would gain 23 back, and then I would lose 10 pounds and I would gain 15 back. And it was just a constant battle, and I might be able to keep it off for a couple months, but eventually it just came back, because after you're done with the diet, because you've reached your goal weight, it just either slowly came back on or it just came on overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what happens. Well, I know that that's what happens with the majority of people. You're certainly not alone in that. And yet you felt like a failure. You're like, I must be doing something wrong.
So I'm 51 and my first diet was at 10 years old. So you can only imagine the amount of times that it just beat me down. 40 years, 41 years, 40 years, because I came to you at 50 years old.
Yeah.
So yeah, it takes a toll on you.
I mean, 10 is so young. Were you on an official diet? Like, was it like a Weight Watchers, or do you remember what it was?
No, the first one was, I was just starting puberty and I had a lot of baby fat on me, and, just family constantly, making little comments. And so my first diet was taking a salad for lunch instead of a sandwich and chips, or getting a hot lunch. And I'm not a very adventurous eater, so it was pretty much lettuce, and occasionally I'd drop a couple grapes in there, or, a couple slices of apple, but I wasn't a vegetable person and I wasn't a dressing person. So it was just lettuce for lunch for a 10-year-old kid who goes out and plays on the playground. I was playing soccer. I was doing all these things, but not having lunch.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm sending love to 10-year-old Anne. No, it's like these things that are normal parts of development, you growing is seen as problematic. And then that's when we put kids on their first diet, and it starts as just like, let's just have a salad instead of a sandwich. And then that turns into 3 decades, 4 decades of disordered eating, like it starts small and then it just turns into disordered eating, if not a full-blown disorder. And it's so sad. Because it's the culture that surrounds us. Like diet culture is it's everybody's doing it, right? It's so normal. So I think that was shocking to you, Angie. I know when you first came to me, like so many of the things that seemed like normal ways of relating to food, you're like, oh, isn't right. This is disordered, right? But we can get to that. I'm curious if you don't mind naming, because in these interviews, I know people be like, oh, I tried that diet, I tried that diet, I tried that diet. Because a lot of women will be able to see themselves in you. What are some of those, like, are you able to name specific diets that you
Oh, I did Weight Watchers on and off, starting with when they just gave out food. It was strictly you joined, you got weighed, you bought food, and that was your meals from then on out. So I've done everything. Let's see, I've done 4 different, I guess, reinventions of Weight Watchers. And so we started with the food, and then it went to the first way they did the point system, and then they revamped the point system, and then they revamped the point system. So I did 3 versions of revamping the point system. So yeah.
Yeah, one of those lifelong Weight Watchers. And Weight Watchers is a really good example of how diet companies and diet culture at large will rebrand themselves over and over to try to stay relevant. So then now a lot of these diet companies are marketing themselves as wellness instead of it being a diet. It's about wellness or it's about health, when really it's just another iteration of the same thing, which is food restriction, disordered eating that doesn't ultimately work in the long run. Not only does it not work to keep weight off, there are so many negative physical and psychological side effects to dieting. And I think that's what you started to realize, where you were like, this isn't working for my life anymore.
Yeah.
How did you get to that point, Angie, where you were like, I can't keep doing this, or you really realized like it wasn't working for you?
I was at an all-time low. Like I said, I felt like it was me. It was something inside me, mentally, physically, something that was wrong with me. And I was actually scouring the internet to help with something that would help me understand my mind and why my mind was not allowing me to do what I wanted it to do. And I came across an article, and there was a link to your website. To this day, I wish I would have kept that, because I was like, how did I get there?
I think it's Yahoo. You're a big Yahoo girl.
I am. and again, for the amount of articles that I read online, and it got so daunting, because one day this food was good for you and the next day it wasn't, and then the next day it was good for you again, and then it's bad for you. And it just, every article contradicted itself, other than eat less calories, lose more weight. And it was like, to the point where I'm like, I can't eat anything if I want to lose weight at this point, because everything's bad for you. And it just, yeah. So mentally I was so messed up, and that's really what brought me to you.
Well, it's maddening, because you're right. All these diets have conflicting information. So it's like, how do we even make sense of nutrition science anymore? If certain diets are saying this food is good, but another diet is saying it's bad, then it's like, so I'll just eat nothing, apparently, because there's going to be some diet somewhere that says that this is bad. And
Yeah.
you started to realize that your body wasn't even responding to the food restriction anymore. And what we're not told is true weight science, and true biology. Your body was doing exactly what it was designed to do.
Yeah.
Our bodies biologically are designed to fight back against food restriction, because it's crap, we're in a famine. Like, we've got not enough food around. So what I'm going to do on purpose is conserve energy, right? And like hold on to fat, which is the opposite of what you're trying to do when you're dieting. But what diet culture will do is they'll say, no, just keep doing it. Keep restricting food. And if you're not losing the weight, it's your fault. So they gaslight the consumer so that you stay in the system, so that you become a, 40-year long, and you invest in dieting for upwards of, 30, 40 years. So it's a toxic system.
And I don't mean to piss off anybody who's in Scientology, but like Weight Watchers, they change something. So now you have to resubscribe, because you had all the tools and I was doing it, and then they tweaked it, and now you got to start over and pay them all over again, because you figured out how it works and you don't need their app anymore. And then they tweak it, and now you've got to go back and learn it a new way. And it reminds me of the Scientology, because they have to pay for these programs And then they go, oh, well, we found this new document, so you got to start from number 1 again and pay for them all again.
Well, I guess, yeah, you see that in business, like not to throw, Apple under the bus, but the iPhone will do that too, where with each iteration, there's a new charger. It's like, why can't I just use my old charger? Why do you need more of my money?
And diet culture just sucks you in that same way,
I know. So yeah. Oh, and the other thing about you, Angie, was you read like a bajillion books. Like you read so many books throughout the course of your lifetime around dieting and nutrition. Like I just imagine you getting to this point where you're just like, I don't even know what to do anymore.
I didn't believe anything anymore, but I was still trying. That was the sad part, is I didn't believe anything that I was reading. And that's, again, why I went and it's got to be mental. It's got to be mental because nothing's working.
Yeah, the reality is, and this is something that you came to learn, there was nothing wrong with you. And there was nothing wrong with your mind. It was simply that you were trying your best to abide by diet culture, and it's diet culture that is the issue. That's an impossible way of relating to food long term. That's a completely unsustainable way of relating to food. So it wasn't your fault.
No, but it doesn't help that the government pays these scientists a lot of money to back these things, and it saddens me greatly. It definitely saddens me.
Well, a lot of the research that we see too around weight and like even health, it's funded by pharmaceutical companies who have a vested interest, like who sell weight loss drugs, for example.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because while they're removing the fat and the sugar and the carbs, they have to add some sort of chemical back into it to make it taste like what you were expecting. Oh, this cookie, well, we've taken all the sugar and all the fat and all the carbs out of it. Well, they've got to add something to it to make it taste like a cookie again. So there's where your pharmaceuticals and your chemical companies are coming into play.
No, it's like it's really inescapable. So that was one of our main goals, Angie, was when you came in, was clearing up some of the confusion around like, who do I even trust anymore, right? Around food. So maybe you can tell me about some of those things that you learned throughout our time.
Well, it took me a really long time to, wrap my head around the portions, part of it was, upbringing, that you eat the food on your plate, the Clean Plate Club. And of course, how much food do I put on my plate? That it seemed to be something that I was stuck on for such a long time. And then I would feel guilty if I ate everything on the plate. Where when I was dieting, I knew exactly to the ounce of what I could have, and I'd lick the bowl because I was allowed to have everything that was on my plate. And now it's, well, I'm allowed to leave food on my plate if I'm not if I don't want it. And that took me a really long time to wrap my head around, because I didn't want to put too much food on my plate, because if I wanted to, I could go back. But again, it was just that whole, what was on my plate was for me to eat, and just trying to get past that was so hard.
Well, I guess absolutely. That is a hard part of the process. And I guess we should kind of describe what it is that you ended up developing, which was an eating style that was more intuitive, based on your body's cues, right? Your body's internal cues of like, when am I hungry? When am I full? What do I need to feel satisfied? Because what that does is it positions you as the expert of your body, right? It positions you as the authority of your own health, instead of relying on a diet or a meal plan, because you had 40 years of relying on diets and meal plans, and you realized this isn't working. So what we need to do is something radical, which is to say, instead of trusting them to tell me how to feed myself, I'm for once going to trust myself to figure out how to feed myself and self-regulate. And that's the idea of portions is it's you learning how to self-regulate based on the amount that your body really needs to feel satisfied. But if you grew up in the Clean Your Plate Club, the Clean Your Plate Club is it's well-meaning parents want kids to finish all the food on their plates, because they want you to be healthy and malnourished and everything. But the problem with that is over time, we can become like this generation of chronic overeaters because we're forcing ourselves to eat past fullness because we have to finish all the food on our plate, even if we don't want all the food on our plate. But then it also kind of goes the other way too, where you're learning as an adult that you're allowed to have more if what's on your plate is not satisfying you. And that's actually really important because if we are under eating, and like with dieting, we're chronically under eating, like the body's going to find some way to make up for that. And that usually shows binge eating later on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever experienced that, Angie? Binging?
Oh my gosh. Binge eating that was always when I would break, it would come to a point where I'd have a little bit of binge, and then it was just a full out make myself sick binge. And you end up in tears in the end. And, again, that went back to, I just didn't trust myself enough and it had to be something. So it's where you came into play.
Well, yeah. And that was one of the big mindset shifts that we made together was binging isn't because you can't control yourself around food. Binging is actually just like a very normal response to food restriction. And I've been there too. I didn't have 40 years of dieting behind me. Like, I'm so thankful for that. But I absolutely had a binge response to food restriction, to dieting. And you feel so much shame. And to learn that that's actually like a compensatory reaction. It's your body just trying to get enough. That is like, oh my God, so I'm not broken, right? That's a relief. But it gives you false evidence that you can't control yourself around food.
Yeah,
and you can't.
It does. And another thing that I learned with you is just, the whole mindful eating. And it's amazing some of the things I really liked, that sitting down and really stopping to taste them. And it's like, this isn't really as good as I remember it being, because before you would take that first bite and then it was just eat it as fast as you can because you were so hungry, you couldn't control it. And now I eat when I'm hungry and I don't let myself get too hungry and I eat until I'm full. So I've got that mindful eating down enough that I'm not taking the first bite and then just gobbling down the rest of my plate. I'm actually tasting every single bite and critiquing it. So it makes a big difference.
And that's a skill too. Like, that is a practice. And that's something that you really put in the work, Angela, to work on that. And we would even—
I'm still working on it.
It's a daily practice. I mean, It really is. And we would talk outside of session and you would give me updates on like, it's going well in this way, or like, I really did sit down and you took good notes, right? You were like, in this meal, I really was mindful and I noticed the sensations. And that really does help you to self-regulate, to notice things like fullness so that we're not blowing past our fullness because we're so distracted while we're eating.
Yeah. And it also, believe it or not, just the difference between, because occasionally you go through the mindless eating and my body feels different after eating mindfully and eating mindlessly. Just the digestion and, the feeling of the food in your body, it feels different. It really does. I had a lot of issues with heartburn and, things like that, acid reflux at night. So I was in a fasting where I wouldn't eat anything after 4:00 because it would make it so I couldn't sleep at night because of the acid reflux. And so when I started the mindful eating, now I could eat dinner at 8:00 at night and go to bed at 10. And as long as I did mindful eating and really paid attention to the taste and everything, my digestion, I don't have any problem sleeping.
Yeah. Well, so heartburn, digestive issues are side effects of disordered eating. So when you develop when you are no longer dieting and you develop a more mindful and intuitive eating style, the research shows that we do see less acid reflux, we see less digestive issues. But there's also science to support that food and nutrients metabolize differently when we're eating mindfully versus eating. But you also spoke to, Angie, a minute ago, how foods that you used to sort of like obsess over, when you're eating them mindfully, you were like, I don't even think this tastes as good as I thought. But we're dieting and we have food restrictions, we place so many foods on a pedestal because we're like,
Yes.
have it so it seems like this sparkly food, and then we just want it more, right? So that was part of our process too, was how do we just neutralize these foods so that it doesn't feel like Reese's peanut butter eggs have power over us.
Yes, the lovely seasonal Reese's peanut butter cup eggs, trees, pumpkins. I think they've got a whole bunch of them now for all the different holidays, but those are my Achilles heel and kryptonite, whatever you want to call it. um, and I actually just opened because I bought 2 bags right after Easter. The Friday after Easter, everything was still on sale, and I bought 2 bags, and I just opened my second bag today. And I had one, and I went, okay, I'm good. Back when I was dieting, if that bag opened, I would eat the whole thing. And if I would have bought them on Friday, by Sunday, they'd all be gone.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. That's like very common. I mean, I think it's brave of you to share because not a lot of people are, telling their stories around food. But yeah, I mean, I used to do the same thing.
Oh, right now at our grocery store, it's really a big thing right now. If you're willing to buy 4 bags of chips, you can get them for $1.99 a piece. And I'm like, well, heck, compared to the $2.99 that they are. So you buy them, and again, back at diet culture, all 4 of those bags would have been gone within days. Now I have them for like a month, and I'm like, I should probably open one of those bags and have it with a sandwich or something. So yeah,
you forget that they're even there, and in the past, you never would have forgotten that you have them in the house.
And again, you couldn't open a bag. Lay's, you can't eat just one. So being able to open the bag, take a handful out, put it on a plate with a sandwich, and then put it away and not think about it is just such a concept to me that I never thought I would get to.
Yeah. Yeah. How freeing too, right?
Oh my gosh, you have no idea.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you probably do, but not to my extent.
Angie, I was just looking back at the calendar because you said you bought those Reese's peanut butter eggs around Easter, and that was like over a month ago, right?
Yeah.
And they've just been like chilling, and you're like, I should probably open that second bag. I just am thinking about back when I was dieting, and I mean, I was in sort of this orthorexia place, which is just like an obsession with clean eating, really trying to eat clean. And if I had Reese's peanut butter eggs or any candy or cookies or anything that I thought was junk food in the house, are you kidding me? I would have eaten it in like one sitting. But here's the thing, because that's part of the cycle. You're like, I need to eat all of this right now so that it'll be gone so that I can start over tomorrow.
Yes. Because I've opened the bag, I've ruined my diet. I'm just going to finish the bag and I'll start tomorrow. Exactly. I'll start again tomorrow.
That's the psychology of a professional dieter. Is
yes.
You in the cycle, because they were like, okay, I'm going to start over tomorrow. So we start over tomorrow and we do as well as we can for as long as we can. And then eventually we break because it's not sustainable. We eat everything. And then I'm going to start over tomorrow. And it's the restriction cycle.
Well, there were times that I'd go to the grocery store and I would say, I'm only going to buy what's on my list, the fruits and vegetables and the meat. And that was all I'm going to get. And then I'd get to the checkout and I'd look down and I would have bags of chips and bags of candy and cookies. And I'm like, how did this all get in? Because I could not remember putting it in my basket. And then I would look at it and go, well, it's not supposed to be there. Check out. I get home and I'm unpacking it and I'd go, oh, open it up and start eating it as I was unpacking. I'm like, it's amazing how you can just block a lot of that out going, I know I'm not supposed to have it, but I take it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you said that you would start with this list of like, I'm going to go to the grocery store and I'm just going to get these things. And that's what, with dieters, we actually see that they end up being less well nourished over time because they have such a limited menu. And I'm allowed to eat just these couple of things, and anything outside of that is not allowed. But variety is one of the most important nutritional indicators. And so that was one of the sort of assignments, Angie, I remember that we had early on, was like, when you go to the grocery store, let's try and just get something that's not on your list. And let's just try and add some variety here. And it got to the point where you go to the grocery store and you don't want the chips, the things that you used to like just crave. It's like, you don't even necessarily want them anymore.
Yeah. And a lot of times now it's like, I buy it to have it, because during diet culture, it was, you know, to have it in the house was a big deal. And now it's like, well, you know, it's not a big deal, but I want to have it there just in case. And then it just kind of sits there. And then I've got to go, oh yeah, I might want to open that up and have some.
Yeah, well, it's nice to be able to have it in the house now and just have that be normal too. Like that's kind of part of the process, is introducing these foods, having them in the house until it gets to the point where it's like, this is just a normal part of my menu. Like I'm allowed to have this and I can have it anytime I want. So that being said, we just don't want it all the time because it removes the urgency to get it all in right now in a binge fashion. If you know, like, it's actually okay if you have it. And then it's the permission paradox, is that you actually don't even end up wanting it as bad. But that takes time, and it's best implemented under the guidance of a professional, because that can be a really scary process.
Oh yeah. This whole process was scary, enlightening, frustrating. Anger was involved. I mean, and it's all towards the diet culture. I feel that it was ruining my life. And I feel so bad for people out there who are still experiencing it.
Yeah, there's a lot of grief in that. I mean, looking back, we continue to process, Angie, in your life. What are the things that you missed out on because you were dieting, because you were insecure in your body, right? All of these things that when we are wrapped up in diet culture, our lives become small, and we invest our time, money, energy, resources into just thinness, the pursuit of thinness. And at what cost, right? We realize that that is a very expensive pursuit, not just financially, but in so many ways. And so when you step out of that system, you get your life back.
You do.
For you. So tell us about that, Angie. What's different for you now?
Well, I'm still wrapping my head around the fact I have privilege. I have thin privilege. I have financial privilege. I can still buy clothes in stores. I can sit in a roller coaster seat. I can, fly on a plane and coach and still be comfortable. And I have the money to buy the foods that I like and that I want, and the clothes that I want. And so a lot of it, there's a lot of thankfulness to this whole process, but it just, again, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the good things about it. And I'm trying not to dwell on the past, because it is what it is. But my attitude towards this whole thing, I can't be thankful enough for everything that I have and the things that you've shown me and the way this whole process came about. I mean, it's very eye-opening, and I highly recommend it to anybody. And I try not to push it on anybody who doesn't ask about it, but I am more than willing to tell anybody who does ask.
Yeah, because it truly has changed your life in so many ways. So the privilege that you're alluding to, I mean, I think that to be able to eat in an intuitive fashion, it absolutely is a privilege. And it's so sad to me that so many of us do have the means to have access to a wide variety of foods, but we place ourselves in a voluntary environment of food scarcity via dieting, which
Yeah.
is nonsensical. And so you are able to realize, I have the means to be able to buy the foods that my body needs to be able to buy the foods that I want, and I should be grateful for that. And then the body privilege is absolutely something to acknowledge as well, that it is not as easy to exist in our society in a larger body. And that is not to say that larger bodies are wrong. It's to say that we live in a society that does not accommodate for all body sizes. And that's the real issue. So that's been a huge learning curve, right?
There has. Yeah. At times I get a little emotional. It's hard to break 40 years of that whole thing. And it still gets me every so often.
Yeah. No, I know, Angie. So, do you mind sharing anything else that is different for you now? Like how your energy, your attitude has shifted, just ways that your life has changed now that you're no longer dieting?
Well, my life doesn't revolve around a scale. And I've realized that because I threw away my scale the minute that I started this, and I have not looked back once. It's frustrating because clothes, I go out and I go, oh, I put this on, it fits great. Oh, I want it in another color, and I pick up the other color and it doesn't fit. And it's like, it's the exact same shirt, the exact same brand, it's just different color. And so I'm still, because I don't weigh myself, the way I feel about my body, I don't want to wear clothes that are too small for me, and I don't want to swim in my clothes either. Mm-hmm. And so putting on those clothes, I'm realizing once I do buy them and I get them home and they feel good, I can eat anything that I want, and it's not changing how I'm fitting into the clothes. Back when I was on the scale and starving myself, I mean, it was, oh, I gained 1 pound and it felt like my clothes were just constricting me. Well, because they were too small for you to begin with, because I was trying to live by a number, both on the scale and on the label. And now that I'm not living by those two things, it's like, well, if it doesn't fit, just get another size. It's not a big deal. So yeah, my whole attitude around that, I'm just trying to let it flow. I'm not worried about that number. If I feel good, if I feel I look good, that's all that matters. Luckily, people don't, say things to me about my weight other than my family. But we won't get into that. That's another podcast.
You've talked enough about that offline.
I've learned that boundary. My mother is where she needs to be. But people don't, say things about my weight. It's in my head. It's in my head because I do have that thin privilege that I'm not that a bigger size is bad, but people don't people don't make comments about my weight, at least not to me. And I try to just feel right for myself, and I'm not trying to be thin for anybody else. I'm not even trying to be thin for myself anymore. Because
we've shifted the mindset to health, mental and physical health. And when that's the focus, the weight doesn't matter. If we're focused on health, then that's our primary goal, right? Is to see how we can have these sustainable health promoting behaviors.
And I'm not trying to be healthy eating. I'm just trying to be healthy. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, absolutely. Because healthy, that what you just put in quotes, the healthy eating can be diet too, right? We want to make sure that when we're talking health, we mean like authentic health, holistic health, whatever health, and you get to define too what health means for you, not what diet culture is saying is healthy. It's what does health look like in her life, right? And that's like unique to you.
Well, and also with all of this, I've learned to have self-love for myself and really give myself the things that I need. Before it used to be, well, if I lose 5 pounds this week, then I'll buy some new clothes. If I lose, 2 pounds this week, well, then I'll allow myself to do this or do that. And now it's, I get a massage every month because I deserve it. I buy new clothes when I need it because I deserve it. And I no longer have that, if you do this, then you can have that. And that's a whole nother mind shift that, comes with getting out of that diet culture, having to you reach a goal and you get a reward. I feel like a dog.
It's a very militant way of relating to yourself. It's really not it's not a healthy way of relating to yourself.
No, and my OCD didn't help, because having that OCD, I live in a fairly, structured environment to keep my sanity through that. And so the whole diet culture just fueled it and made it so much worse. Now that I'm not dieting anymore, my control and everything else from that has really helped the OCD calm down quite a bit.
In other areas, not just with food. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, because OCD will manifest itself in food, and dieting is like the perfect foundation for that, right? It's
yeah, control.
completely. I love that you mentioned self-love. I think that that is one thing that you really were able to develop, is a newfound level of respect for yourself and for your body. And you were even able to say, like, if something doesn't fit, I just get another size, like very neutral about that. And that takes work to get to that point of peace and neutrality. And I think we've done a lot of body image work, especially after we got a lot of the food stuff out of the way. It opened up space for us to do body image work, and you're able to value your whole self as more than just a body, right? It's more than just your weight, especially because you don't weigh yourself anymore. So it's not about the number on the scale. And you really are giving yourself the respect that you've always deserved.
Yeah. Right now there are two very, very bad words in my house. One of them is diet, because I will never, ever, 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 ever diet again. Ever. And allowed. Everything is allowed. So there's no not allowed. Mm-hmm. Not allowed is not something that is said in my house anymore. Yeah, that was another hard one. You're not allowed. And I'm allowed everything now. So
yeah, I mean, you're just learning more too about what you need and how you can meet those needs in realistic, sustainable, compassionate ways. So you've developed not only this whole new way of relating to food, this new way of relating to yourself and your body that has just opened up so many wonderful things for you.
And I have to really thank you for that one. When we first started, I told you how I am not a very, I don't really, didn't have those emotional, links to myself, and being able to take that mental break every day, if it's just for 5 minutes, to sit down and check in with my body and say, are you frustrated? Are you, unhappy? Are you happy? Are you, sad? Are you whatever? And just taking those feelings and sitting with them and processing them and letting them go. The amount of stress on myself has just floated away. And it's sad, but a lot of it revolved around the diet culture. And little things that pop in your head during the day, I can just stop and process it, as opposed to pushing it down and letting it pop up later and again and again and again, because it seemed like it was those same scenarios from being younger, and bad things happening that I would just live with and just keep living with it. And now I process it and I move on, and I can't thank you enough for those skills.
I mean, of course, you have developed this practice of connecting to yourself and tuning into yourself, but of course you didn't know how to do that before, because with dieting teaches us to be completely disconnected from our bodies, to be disconnected from our needs, disconnected from our physical and emotional bodies. So, and to consistently deny our needs. We are consistently denying our hunger. We're saying, oh, you're hungry? No, it's not time to eat yet. Our fasting window isn't up, or whatever. Or you're only allowed to have this amount. So we're not ever appropriately meeting our physical basic needs, biological need for food. And that's just one example of how dieting, that's just one example of how diet culture consistently teaches us how to not get our needs met. So when you're not only like no longer chronically deprived and you are getting your needs met through food, it opens you up to then say like, what other needs have been going unmet for me for a really long time? And how disconnected was I from my body? How disconnected was I from myself? And now you even like craft out time in your day to intentionally check in. And it's created so much peace for you. Like you said, less stress throughout your day, just more mindfulness, more peace.
Yeah. And I've now have boundaries with my mother and with, with everybody now. I mean, I have no problems when people start talking diet to say, I'm out of here if you want to keep talking about it, or we can change the subject. I have no problems redirecting my mother when she, pulls her little tricks.
Well, having boundaries is one of those interesting byproducts of healing your relationship with food, because when you're dieting, you are in the practice of giving all your power away. You're not advocating for yourself. You're saying, I'm going to let this trainer, I'm going to let this plan or this program tell me what I'm allowed to do. I'm not allowed to do, what I'm allowed to eat, what I'm not allowed to eat. And so you're letting that diet call all the shots, or the trainer, or the whoever nutritionist,
ex-husband.
Exactly. So when you are now in this place where you're like, I decide how I feed myself, I decide how I move my body, that starts to translate, and you have agency. You advocate for yourself in other areas.
Yeah. It has been a wild ride, and this past year and a half has just been so amazing, and I feel like I've come so far. And yes, there is that sadness that I missed out, but again, I try not to look behind. I want to live right now, and hopefully the future will bring better things, but try not to look back and try not to look too far forward. I'm worried about today. If I can get through today, tomorrow will work out itself.
Wow, look at that. For somebody who has OCD tendencies too, that's a pretty, surrender way of like, you know what,
you don't see my 3 lists sitting around here of things I need to do for next week, but
okay, overall, Angie, you have a level of presence in your life that I do. You really worked hard to achieve.
And it's hard to imagine that mindful eating brought it on.
Yeah.
Just the whole concept will just change your life in so many ways.
Yeah. Anything else you want to share, Angie, about the process or what you learned or your personal experience here?
I think I hit all of them.
Great. Well,
it's been magical. It really has been. And even if I would have found this 10 years ago, it would have changed so much in my life. Not sure if you were doing this 10 years ago. And I can't say that working with somebody else, I would have had the same relationship that I have with you. You are so open, and you've got these great responses for me, as if you're expecting me to say these things. But it's been really great working with you, and I hope to keep it going. Don't think that this is ending anytime soon, because I'm learning day to day and need that refresher every so often.
Thank you for your kind words. It's been such a joy to be on this journey with you. And one thing that inspires me about you, Angela, too, is that you are constantly wanting to learn and grow. And like, as soon as we check one thing off the list, you're like, I have a new goal. And you come to me about the next thing we can work on. And it's so fun to work with clients like you who are always wanting to better themselves. So go ahead, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, you know, if you're not gonna keep moving forward, you know, I don't want to flatline and then fall back, because again, with 40 years of diet culture in my mind, my biggest worry is that I'm gonna step back, and I'm never, ever, 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 ever going to diet again, ever.
I love it so much. I mean, that is a legitimate thing to be mindful of. I had 40 years of doing things the other way. And so in the grand scheme of things, this is still relatively new. While you are experiencing incredible freedom, we just want to make sure that it's going to stick, right?
Well, every so often, you know, you're doing whatever, and the first thing that pops up into your mind when something goes wrong is, well, if I just lose a little weight, no. I'm just gonna get a different size. No, I'm just gonna try something else on. No, I'm just not gonna look in the mirror today.
Yeah,
you know,
like we've been down this road before. We know where the road ends.
Yes.
So what would you tell Angie, anybody who is interested in starting this process but is maybe scared, what advice would you give them?
It is scary. It is extremely scary. And you will ride the roller coaster of your emotions. But it is worth at least trying. You've tried everything else. Why not try this? I mean, what is it going to hurt? You're going to spend 6 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever you decide to go with. The worst you can do is learn something, and you may actually realize how great it is. I mean, I'm sure that you start it and go, no, I'm not going to lose weight on it, and they leave. And that's the hardest thing for diet culture people to come into this and accept, is that it's not about weight loss. And that's the hardest thing to get over. But once you grasp it and how great all of this is, losing weight's going to be the last thing on your mind.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like our primary goal is clearing up the chaos that has been surrounding your relationship with food, and it's healing your relationship with food and trusting that your weight's going to land where it needs to land as a byproduct of that. Because when we pursue weight loss intentionally, what's going to happen then is we're restricting our food. And anytime we restrict our food, not only is that harmful for the body, it slows the metabolism, et cetera, but a very normal response, like we said earlier, to food restriction is binge eating. So we're never fully going to step out of the restrict binge cycle if we continue to have this intense focus on weight loss. So what we want to put at the forefront is, how can we create peace around food, and then just wait and see what happens. Once you have that peace around food, it's like whole new world, right?
It is. It's a wonderful, wonderful world.
I like to use the word magical. It is magical. Well, anything else, Angie? I'm so grateful for your time today and so grateful for your openness. But anything else that you want to share?
No, I think I got everything out. Good luck to anybody out there wanting to try this, and hope to see you in group soon.
Yeah, let's do it. Thank you. You're the best. I loved this chat, and I know anybody watching is probably just like, yes. They can see themselves in your experience. So I'm sure they'll find that to be very validating. So thank you so much for everything that you shared. I'm so grateful for you, Angie. And I'll see you.
Glad to help. Yes, not this coming Monday, but the next Monday.
Yep, for a session. All right. Thank you, Angie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.